She was born in a palace, but raised in secret to fight a war no one believed would come. Now, a forgotten prophecy is unfolding, and the fate of an entire kingdom rests on a girl the world has never seen wield a sword. What happens when a princess becomes a legend and the enemy doesn't even know her name? One secret identity, one hidden army, one final chance to save her people. This is the story they try to erase, but fire never forgets. They called Zanfara the City of Wisdom, but no one knew it was guarded by a girl with a sword hidden in a robe. Long ago, in the golden land of Zanfara, a city of great knowledge and beauty, scholars walked the streets, scrolls filled the libraries, and peace filled the hearts of its people. Zanfara was famous across the kingdoms for its learning, music, and trade. But behind the calm walls of this peaceful city, danger was quietly growing. At the heart of Zanfara lived a girl named Ariyike. To the people, she was just a gentle princess, the only daughter of the late Queen Morowa, and the quiet heir to the royal seat. But behind her soft smile and graceful walk, Ariyike carried a truth that no one knew. She was a warrior. Ariyike's mother, Queen Morowa, had once been a fierce fighter. Though the world saw her as a queen in fine robes, she had trained in secret, mastering the sword, the bow, and the arts of war. When Ariyike was still a child, her mother whispered to her by firelight, "One day, peace will be threatened, and you must be ready." Before she died, Queen Morowa gave her daughter a chest filled with hidden weapons, ancient battle scrolls, and a black robe with a golden crest. Ariyike had kept the chest hidden for years. She had trained in silence, early at dawn, late at night. Her hands knew the grip of a sword better than the softness of silk. She had never told anyone, not even Idris, the boy who had been her closest friend since childhood. But everything changed the night the messengers arrived. "Invaders are coming," they said, "from the north. Riders with black flags. They've destroyed 3 villages. Zanfara is next." The king, Ariyike's father, was old and tired. He ordered guards to prepare, but Zanfara was not a city of soldiers. It was a city of books, not battles. Panic spread. Fear swallowed the streets. Ariyike watched the city she loved fall into silence. She stood at the window of her chamber looking at the moon. Her heart burned. "They think I'm just a girl in a palace," she whispered, "but I am my mother's daughter." That night, as the city slept, Ariyike pulled out the chest beneath her bed. She lifted the black robe. She tied her mother's sword at her waist. She was no longer just Princess Ariyike. She was the shadow of Zanfara, and her fight was just beginning. The streets of Zanfara were quiet that night, but the silence wasn't peaceful. It was full of fear. Ariyike, now dressed in her mother's dark robe, slipped out of the palace through a hidden passage only the royal family knew about. Her heart beat loudly in her chest, but her face stayed calm. She had spent years training in secret, but this was the first time she was stepping into the real world as a warrior. Her sword felt heavier than usual, not in weight, but in meaning. She was no longer practicing in secret. She was walking into danger. She moved through alleyways, past shuttered shops, and closed doors. The goal was clear: to find people who were brave enough to fight. Zanfara's guards were few, and most had never seen war. But she believed the spirit of her people was stronger than anyone knew. Her first stop was the old stonemason's quarter, a poor area near the edge of the city, where people worked hard and trusted few. There, she found Fatu, a tough woman known for her loud voice and sharper fists. Fatu had once fought off 3 thieves who tried to rob her stall. Ariike approached her quietly as she was cleaning her tools by candlelight. "Who are you?" Fatu asked, narrowing her eyes. "A friend," Ariike replied, "one who needs your strength." Fatu laughed. "Strength? This city doesn't want fighters. They want quiet workers." "Not anymore," Ariike said, pulling back her hood. "The invaders are coming, and Zanfara must fight." Fatu stared. You're the princess." "Not tonight," Ariike said. "Tonight, I am a warrior, and I need you." That was the beginning. By sunrise, Ariike had gathered 5 people. Fatu, a silent hunter named Kole, a pair of clever twin messengers, Mina and Muna, and an old blacksmith who still remembered the sound of war. They called themselves the Flame of Zanfara. They had no army, no riches, just courage, and a princess no one saw coming. Idris had always been by Ariike's side. He was the son of a merchant, smart and kind, with eyes that noticed more than he let on. They had played together as children, studied maps in the library, and whispered dreams beneath the stars. But now, Ariike avoided him. Not because she wanted to, but because she had to. He didn't know about her late-night escapes, the weapons she practiced with, or the warriors she was gathering, and it was tearing her apart. Idris noticed the change. One evening, he caught her sneaking back through the palace courtyard. "Where have you been?" he asked her. To win a war, you don't always need more weapons. Sometimes, you just need to know where to strike. The Flame of Zanfara had grown to 10 people in 1 week. Ariike trained them herself, teaching them how to move without sound, how to fight with sticks and swords, and how to think like warriors, not victims. They met in the underground chamber of the old library, a secret room her mother once used to hide forbidden scrolls. One day, by going through the old chests, Ariike found something wrapped in red cloth. A map. It showed the city of Zanfara in full detail, not just the streets, but the hidden tunnels, underground wells, and forgotten gates that had been sealed for years. At the bottom was a symbol, a sword inside a flame. It was her mother's. Ariike laid the map out on the table. "This," she told her team, "is our advantage." With it, they could move unseen, strike where the enemy didn't expect, lead the invaders into traps. It was not just a map, it was hope. Fatu grinned. "Let them come. We'll show them the fire inside the city." The invaders had reached the outer walls. The scouts moved at night, testing the guards. The city was holding its breath. Ariike decided it was time to send a message. "There's a weapons cart," Cole said, "parked near the north gate. If it reaches the main camp, they'll have enough swords to arm 100 men. Then we stop it," Ariike said. That night, dressed in black with faces covered, the Flame of Zanfara moved like shadows. Ariike led them through an old tunnel, popping up near the cart just before dawn. The cart was guarded by 5 men. Ariike gave the signal. Fatu rushed in from the side. Kole shot arrows from above. Mina and Muna created a distraction with firecrackers made from herbs and oil. Ariike faced the lead guard. Their swords clashed. He was bigger, stronger, but not faster. She knocked his sword aside and whispered, "Tell your master, Zanfara is not yours to take." She hit the back of his neck, and he fell unconscious. They burned the cart. Flames lit the early morning sky. And for the first time, the people of Zanfara woke up to something new. Resistance. After the cart was destroyed, the entire city buzzed with rumors. "Did you hear? Someone attacked the invaders' supply line. They say it was a masked warrior, strong as a lion, quick as lightning. Some think It was the spirit of Queen Moroa herself. Ariyike listened quietly as she walked through the market in plain robes, her hood pulled low. She bought herbs from old women and spoke gently to children, but her ears were sharp. The resistance was working, but her tension was growing, and her tension was dangerous. She met Fatu behind the spice stalls. They spoke in hushed voices. "We must be careful," Ariyike warned. "The enemy is looking for us now." Fatu grinned. "Let them look. We'll make fools of them." But Ariyike didn't smile. "Every time we strike, we get stronger, but we also become targets." That evening, as the sun set, Ariyike returned to the palace. Her father, the king, was in his chambers, looking tired and defeated. "The people need hope," he muttered, "and I can give them nothing." Ariyake knelt beside him. "Then, let them find hope in something else," she said. "Even if they don't know who it is." He looked at her, puzzled, but she smiled faintly, and the king said nothing more. Idris had been watching. He followed her once, late at night, as she left the palace in silence. He kept to the rooftops, moving like the wind, trained from years of playing hide and seek in the palace grounds. What he saw shocked him. Ariyike, his sweet, book-loving friend, was fighting, training others, leading secret meetings like a general. She wasn't just helping the city, she was preparing for war. The next day, he confronted her in the palace garden. "I know everything," he said quietly. Ariyike froze. "Then you know why I couldn't tell you. You should have trusted me." "I did," she whispered, "but I couldn't risk you being taken or worse. I could have helped. You still can." That moment changed everything. Idris joined the Flame of Zanfara, not as a warrior, but as a spy. He had friends across the city. He could move unnoticed, hear what others missed. And in his heart, his feelings for Ariyike deepened. But he also knew she was no longer just a girl he loved. She was a warrior, and she was fighting for all of them. The Flame of Zanfara continued their work. They stopped food wagons meant for the enemy. They spread fear through clever tricks and fire. But one day, Ariyike returned to the palace to find her father sick, his face pale, his body shaking. The royal healer looked nervous. "He was fine yesterday," he stammered. "And now, poison." Ariyike's eyes narrowed. Only someone inside the palace could have done this. She met with Idris that night in the old library. "We have a traitor," she said. Idris nodded. "I'll find out who." For days he moved silently, watching servants, guards, even cooks. Finally, he saw a man in the royal kitchen, slipping something into the tea kettle before taking it to the king's room. He was one of the new guards, planted by the invaders. They captured him that night and forced him to speak. He revealed what Ariyike feared. The invaders weren't just waiting outside. They were already inside the walls. The war had just become far more dangerous. With the traitor caught and the king recovering slowly, Ariyike knew they needed a new plan. The enemy was preparing for a full attack. The city gates wouldn't hold, but she remembered something: the ancient map. One tunnel marked with a red X. It led outside the city, but no one had used it in over 100 years. She and Cole, the silent hunter, went to find it. They walked deep under the library, through dust and cobwebs. Finally, they found it. A sealed stone wall, covered in vines and moss. With help from the blacksmith, they broke it open. It led to a forgotten cave, outside the city walls. "A secret way in," Cole said. "A secret way out," Ariyike added. "Or both." That tunnel would become the Flame's most powerful tool. They could now move in and out of the city undetected. It was more than a passage. It was a path to victory. The invaders had grown tired of games. One night, they set fire to the outer market, trying to scare the people into surrender. Smoke filled the sky. People screamed. The fire raced toward homes. But Ariyike and her team were already moving. Mina and Muna led villagers to safety. Idris helped put out flames, using wet cloths and buckets from the wells. Ariyike climbed to the rooftops, leaping from building to building, guiding children away from danger. By morning, the fire was gone, and the people saw something they hadn't expected. A dark figure on the highest roof, arms raised, sword shining in the sun. A hero in black, who had saved them when no one else could. They didn't know her name, but they began to chant one anyway. The shadow of Zanfara. Ariyike's eyes filled with tears. They believed in her, even if they didn't know who she was. News of the burned carts and the rescued market had reached the ears of the enemy's leader, General Karo, a cruel and clever man known for destroying villages without lifting a sword himself. He sent a messenger to the city, dressed as a traveler, carrying only a scroll and a black feather. The scroll was delivered to the palace gates. Ariyike, standing beside a recovering father, read it aloud. To the coward hiding in shadows, show your face, or I will drag your people into the light, one by one. It was a challenge, a trap, and a warning. The council panicked. We must surrender, cried one elder. He'll burn the city. But Ariyike stood tall. We've already seen fire, she said calmly, and we are still standing. Her father looked at her differently now, not as a daughter, but as a leader. That night, she met with the flame. This is not just about one city anymore, she told them. This is about showing the world that knowledge, courage, and heart are stronger than steel. They agreed. Zanfara would not surrender. Not now. Not ever. Idris returned with news. The invaders were moving supplies along the Ruwa River, a winding path just outside the city walls. If they lost those supplies, the army would be hungry and slower. It was risky, guarded, watched. But Ariyike had a plan. They would strike from the water itself, using small boats hidden by vines. The flame of Zanfara paddled at night beneath the stars. Ariyike led the group, dressed in full black, her face hidden. As the enemy boats floated lazily downstream, a team tied ropes to trees on either side of the river. At a signal, they pulled. The lead boat flipped, shouting, splashing, confusion. Then came the arrows from coal, hidden in the bushes. Mina and Muna lit oil flasks and rolled them down the hills. The river lit up in orange flame. The enemy fled, and the supplies drifted down the river, right into Zanfara's hands. The people feasted that night, not just on food, but on hope. One evening, after days of planning and battle, Idris found Ariyike alone in the training hall. He walked in quietly and spoke without looking at her. I saw the people cheering for the shadow today. She didn't respond. I also saw a little girl cry because she wanted to be brave, like the shadow, not knowing it was you. Still, she said nothing. He stepped closer. Ariyike, I love you. I always have. But I need to know, are you going to keep hiding from me? She looked at him, her face filled with pain. I'm not hiding from you, she whispered. I'm protecting you. I don't want protection, he said softly. I want truth. A tear rolled down her cheek. I'm tired of being a secret. Then she reached up and pulled off the mask. Idris stared. His heart pounded. And then he smiled. I already knew. That night, as Ariyike and Idris sat together in quiet peace, a scream echoed through the city. The enemy had found the underground chamber beneath the library. Smoke rose from the ancient books. The flame of Zanfara rushed in, Ariyike in full armor, Fatu swinging a hammer, Kole with arrows flying. The enemy had come with fire, but it didn't expect resistance. In tight tunnels, Ariyike fought like a storm. She blocked swords, turned them aside, and struck with grace. Her team pushed back the invaders inch by inch. Idris led children to safety through the secret gate. Mina and Muna knocked over oil lamps, darkening the passage. When the smoke cleared, the enemy was gone. The books were saved. The fire was out. But something had changed. The flame was no longer hiding. They were rising. The next day, the earth trembled as hundreds of armored riders approached the outer gate. At the front rode General Caro, tall, cold-eyed, and cruel. He set up camp within sight of the city, sending drums that pounded like thunder through the streets. He gave one message: "You have 1 week. Surrender or burn." The city council wept. The king remained silent. But Ariyike stood at the gates that evening, looking out at the dust and the tents and the hundreds of swords. She was not afraid. "We have 1 week," she said to the people gathered around her. 1 week to teach them what Zanfara is made of. And in the crowd, someone shouted back, "We have the shadow." The chant began. "We have the shadow. We have the shadow." And for the first time, Caro frowned. General Caro's army loomed just outside Zanfara's walls, their tents like scars across the sand. His messengers carried threats. His soldiers shouted insults. But inside the city, something else was happening. The people were no longer afraid. The young helped fortify the gates with stone and wood. The elderly shared stories of the last war. Traders donated supplies. The market square became a gathering place for unity, not fear. And everywhere, painted on walls, carved into clay pots, whispered in the streets, was one name: the shadow of Zanfara. Ariyike moved among them, hooded, helping, guiding. Though most did not know who she was, they followed her lead. Her courage had become their own. In the House of Learning, scholars wrote messages of hope on scrolls and tied them to pigeons, sending them across kingdoms. Maybe someone would come. Maybe they wouldn't. But Zanfara would not wait for saving. They would fight. As Ariyike and Fatu searched through the ruins of a sealed library wing, they discovered a stone box marked with her mother's crest. Inside were several leather-bound scrolls, battle strategies, secret defense positions, and most importantly, a forgotten design for a catapult built from local wood and scrap iron. "Your mother was planning to defend Zanfara long before we ever knew we'd need to," Fatu said, amazed. They carried the plans to the blacksmith and the builders. Within days, a crude but powerful catapult stood hidden atop a hill behind the outer market. Cole and Idris practiced launching stones at night. "It's not perfect," Cole said, "but it might buy us time." Ariyike stared at the scroll. "My mother knew this day would come," she whispered. And now, it was her turn to finish what Queen Morowa had begun. Just when Ariyike thought they were ready, Idris brought terrible news. "There's a mole," he said. Someone inside our group is feeding the enemy our plans. It explained too much. How the enemy had found their tunnel once. How their trap by the east gate had failed. Ariyike called a secret meeting in the stone cellar of the old archive. Everyone was silent. Tension thickened the air. Finally, it was the blacksmith, an old, quiet man, who stepped forward. "It's me," he said softly. "They took my daughter, told me she'd be safe if I told them what you were planning." A heavy silence followed. Ariyike walked up to him. "Did they keep their promise?" she asked. He shook his head. "No, she never came back." Tears filled his eyes. "I'm sorry." Ariyike nodded. "You told the truth now. That's what matters. We fight together, or not at all." No one spoke for a moment. Then Fatu said, "Let's make sure no one else loses their daughter." It started before dawn. A single arrow landed in the palace courtyard. Black feathers, poison-tipped. Then came the drums. Then the smoke. Then the shouts. General Karo had begun his siege. He sent his first wave, fast riders, with torches meant to set the market ablaze. But the flame of Zanfara was ready. Obstacles blocked the streets. Nets were strung across alleyways. The rooftop warriors launched stones from above. Ariyike fought on the front line, moving like wind and fire. Her blade never missed. Her robe never slowed her down. Idris led the archers. Cole picked off enemy scouts before they reached the inner walls. Even the people fought, throwing water from rooftops, sounding horns, hiding children. By noon, the first wave had failed. Karo stood from his camp, watching the smoke rise from his own fallen warriors. "So," he said coldly, "they want a war." And deep in Zanfara, under a quiet tree, the people gathered again. They lit a fire, they prayed, and they whispered the name that had become their shield. The shadow of Zanfara. After the first wave of the siege, the air over Zanfara hung thick with ash and heat. The marketplace smoldered. 3 buildings had been lost, but many lives had been saved, thanks to fast thinking and Ariyike's leadership. But during the chaos, Cole had not returned. He was last seen guiding families through the tunnel by the riverbank. Ariyike and Idris went searching at once. Beneath the collapsed building near the eastern gate, they found a faint trail of footprints and blood. They followed the signs to the mouth of a hidden passage, blocked by rubble, smoke curling through the cracks. "Help me move this!" Ariyeke ordered, her voice shaking. With their bare hands, they pulled stone after stone until finally, Cole emerged, covered in soot, carrying a wounded child in his arms. He collapsed at Ariyeke's feet. "I couldn't save them all," he whispered. Ariyeke knelt beside him. "But you saved someone, and that matters." The king of the neighboring land had sent word. Zanfara will not fall alone. Help was coming. Supplies, fighters, builders, not a full army, but hope. Enough to tip the balance. Ariyike held the scrolls in her hands, tears in her eyes. The king had grown weaker. He spent his days resting, listening to distant drums, and watching his daughter with pride. One evening, Ariyike sat by his bed, holding his hand. "I'm sorry I lied," she whispered. "I should have told you I was the shadow." He smiled faintly. "No, you did what leaders do. You protected your people, even from truth, when truth was too heavy." He paused, his voice fading like the wind. "I was born to rule. You were born to lead. There's a difference." She wept quietly, holding his hand tightly. "Zanfara will need you," he said, "not as a princess, but as their queen." And with those words, he closed his eyes. The drums outside continued, but in Ariyike's heart, a new beat began, the beat of a leader rising. General Karo made his move. On the seventh night, under moonlight, he gathered his full force and launched an all-out assault. He aimed not for the front walls, but for the last gate, the narrowest entry into Zanfara, forgotten by many, but not by him. But Ariyike had already read her mother's map, and she was waiting. She split her team, Fatu and Kole with the archers, Idris with the rooftops, herself with the front line. As the invaders rushed the gate, the flame unleashed their fury. Stones fell, arrows rained, traps were triggered. Ariyike fought in silence, her sword dancing with light. Then, Karo himself stepped onto the battlefield. Ariyike met him face to face, heart pounding, sword steady. "You," he said, recognizing her for the first time. "You underestimated me," she replied. He raised his blade. She raised hers. And the battle for Zanfara began. Ariyike and General Karo circled each other, swords drawn, the air heavy with dust and tension. All around them, Zanfara's defenders clashed with invading soldiers. Arrows flew, cries filled the air. Karo swung first, fast, sharp, brutal. Ariyike blocked him with both arms trembling, but her feet remained firm. She wasn't as big, but she was faster, smarter. She had trained for this all her life. "You fight well," Karo sneered. "I fight for something real," she replied. "You fight for fear." Their swords clashed again and again. Karo nearly disarmed her, but Idris shouted from a rooftop, "Ariyike, remember who you are." Her eyes sharpened. She dodged. She struck. She used her size, her grace, her years of secret training. She knocked Karo to his knees. "I could kill you," she said, panting. Karo stared up at her, shocked. "But I won't, because Zanfara is not ruled by cruelty." Then she dropped his sword at his feet and turned away. That moment, the warrior sparing her enemy became legend. Karo's army, seeing their leader defeated and captured, broke. Some ran, others dropped their weapons. The people of Zanfara didn't chase them. They gathered in the square around Ariyike, who now stood in torn robes, her sword at her side, her face smudged with ash and sweat. Fatu lifted her fist in the air. "For the shadow!" The crowd echoed it. For the shadow, for Zanfara, for the future. Drums began to beat, not for war, but for celebration. Cole brought the enemy's banners and dropped them at Ariike's feet. Mina and Muna passed out fish cakes. Idris looked at Ariike and said softly, "You didn't just save us, you changed us." She didn't reply. She just looked to the sky and let herself cry for her father, for her mother, and for all they had become. The council met days later in the royal chamber. The throne stood empty, the crown placed gently on velvet. "She has earned this," said one elder. "More than anyone before her," said another. But Ariike hesitated. "I never wanted power," she told them. "I only wanted freedom for our people, our future, our voices." Fatu placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then lead us, not as a ruler above us, but as one of us." So Ariike stepped forward. She did not wear golden robes. She wore black and silver, the colors of the flame. And the people bowed, not to a queen of titles, but to a woman of action. From that day forward, she was known as Queen Ariike, the flame bearer of Zanfara. With the enemy gone, Zanfara rebuilt. Houses were mended, schools reopened, songs returned to the market. But something had changed. Something deep. Children played with wooden swords and told stories of the shadow. The House of Learning was renamed the Hall of Moroa in honor of the queen who prepared her daughter for a future no one saw coming. Idris opened a training school for messengers and scouts. Fatu led a new council to defend the city. And Arisike, she walked the streets every day, speaking to farmers and mothers, scholars and students. She ruled not from a tower, but from the ground, and the people loved her for it. Years passed. The name of Zanfara spread across kingdoms, not for its riches, but for its courage. Visitors came to see the city that stood alone and won. They asked about the shadow, about the queen who spared her enemy, about the flame that rose from silence. And every year, on the anniversary of their victory, the people of Zanfara gathered by the gates where the final battle took place. Children painted black flames on their cheek. Drums played. And in the crowd, Queen Ariike stood, older, wiser, proud. She held a small child in her arms and whispered, "You don't have to be born brave. You only have to decide not to be afraid." The crowd began to chant, "The shadow leaves, the flame endures. We are Zanfara." And across the land, the story burned bright. The story of the warrior who became a queen and the people who became fire. Subscribe for more interesting African folk tales. Like, share, and comment.